What's up YouTube? Welcome back to another video. My name's Kyle. Today we're going to be talking about seminar rooms. If you guys did in fact purchase the webinar module, any webinar licenses, we actually call them seminar licenses on the back end. So we're going to go through scheduling one today. So seminars differ a little bit from meetings just because there's a different aspect to it known as scheduling. You kind of want to think of the seminar rooms as a virtual conference room, right? So if you're at the office, you can't just waltz into a conference room and use it. Chances are someone is probably scheduled a time to use it, at least if you guys are in a busy office building. So again, you need to schedule it ahead of time, and that's what you have to do with seminar rooms as well. So we're going to go through and do that. First things first, though, I've dealt with a lot of customers recently who somehow have changed their time zones, and we just want to make sure that you have the correct time zone in place, just because that's going to matter and have a direct correlation with the actual scheduling of the seminar itself. So what you'll do is if you come to administration and you come to edit info, you're going to want to go ahead and make sure that your default time zone is set to whatever time zone, obviously you're affiliated with. I'm Eastern time. And then there's one more place where on an individual level you guys can check this. And if you just come to my profile at the top, we're going to come to edit my preferences, and you'll want to make sure the correct one is set here as well. Very important. Again, if you schedule your seminar and you schedule it for 8 hours, but it's 8 hours on a different time zone, it might end abruptly, and you might be super confused as to why it ended when you had actually scheduled it and you thought you did everything correctly. So just make sure, just double check that your time zones are in fact correct. Now, when you have the webinar module, when you purchase webinar licenses, seminar licenses in general, you're going to be living in the seminars tab. I know it might be tempting to click on the meetings button and go do stuff in the meeting section. Sorry, if you don't own any meeting licenses, you will not be there. You'll be in fact living inside the seminar sessions. There are shared seminar licenses. There are named seminar licenses. Shared means multiple folks can actually use the same license, obviously, and then of course named licenses are named to one individual person. So if you have a seminar license that is named to you as one of those named webinar 100, 500, 1000, etc., you're just simply going to click on my seminars here, and you'll see any of your previous seminars you've ever created. Sometimes I'll be tempted to click user seminars, and then you should see like a folder with your name on it. Seminar sections, this will be blank if you don't actually have anything scheduled. So again, the session is different from the room itself. When you create a seminar room, it's almost like you're creating the virtual piece of real estate, and then the session is the actual scheduled program that you're going to have in that virtual room. Again, so these are the big key differences between seminars and meetings. Again, seminars, we need to schedule them. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and click the My Seminars button. We're going to go ahead and create a room together. This wizard is honestly very, very familiar, or should be familiar if you guys have ever worked in meeting rooms, but it's pretty much the same thing. So we'll run through here and go ahead and create this room. So I'm going to name it. I'm going to call this Kyle's Virtual Webinar. You can name it whatever you want, just because you can also come back and change it to whatever you want. However, creating the link, this is something that is set in stone forever, so make it count. Virtual webinar, I think I've already got a room with this name, so I'll call it number 3. The summary, I generally never ever fill this out. You guys can if you want. Templates, we're going to be making a separate video on templates, but templates will allow you to clone other Connect rooms that you've already created in the past. So any template that you see here that's listed under shared templates is that first portion of the line. That means that someone else has created it and they put it in the shared section and you can use it. And then anything with my templates is obviously your own individual rooms that you can copy, duplicate, or clone. It'll carry over everything. So if you've already created a room in the past, you loved how it looked, you customized it, you branded it, this will help you retain that same customization. And of course, if you guys want, you can build off of it in the new room and make changes. We're going to leave it at the default one for now. Language, English. You've got other ones that you can choose from too. German, Spanish, French, Italian, Dutch, Portuguese, Turkish, Russian, and some of your Mandarin languages. We've got access. Now, a lot of times the common use case with webinars is to actually leverage your webinar with registration. You don't have to, but the webinar package does come with a registration tool. So if you are planning on doing registration, I would leave the access set to registered users only. This way, people are forced to register to your session in order to join. It would be sort of it wouldn't make much sense if you were to have folks be able to join without registering, because then Connect's not going to be able to pull adequate reporting. And when you add registration, you're basically telling Adobe Connect, hey, track everything that this attendee does in this webinar and track that based on their unique email ID, right? So if they don't register, it's not going to be able to do any of that. And that kind of defeats the purpose of having registration in the first place. So if you are doing registration, make sure you select registered users for your access point. If you're not doing registration, I'd probably do either accepted guests or anyone who has the link. And that makes it super easy for other folks to get into the room. So again, you've got 4 options. You can add a password function, and this will in essence double your access configuration options, because you can add a password to any of these 4, and then you can change that password whenever you want. Standard view, we're going to keep that checked off. That's our newest and greatest in terms of the most modern, up-to-date application that Adobe has to offer at the current moment. At the time of this video, we're in June, and we do have the option to use Classic View, but by around September, they will actually be disabling the Classic View. So get used to the standard view. We're going to leave browser access checked off. I think usually browser access is a nice option for webinars specifically, because usually in webinars it's more of an information delivery program, right? You're just sort of dumping information on your audience. It's not as interactive. And so I think the browser view is acceptable in those situations. Folks will come. They're probably, it's not like they're reoccurring attendees on trainings that you're going to be having day in and day out throughout the week. It's probably a one-time session. They're just coming to listen in and just some information. And if we want to make it easy for them to come in, download free, the browser access is going to allow them to do that exactly. No downloads required. But just note there are 2 slight limitations with the browser access, and that is you can only see 2 webcams at a time, and you cannot screen share as the person that's in the browser. So if you're just an attendee, the reason why I think this works is because if you're an attendee in a webinar, you're usually not screen sharing, right? It's usually just the hosts or the guest speakers, the presenters that are screen sharing. You don't really have a need because you're just sort of passively listening to the session. So that's why I think the browser access makes a lot of sense. On more engaging trainings where the attendees are more in tune and actually engaged with the hosts and the trainers, then I think that you should uncheck this and be forced to grab the application so you can have access to all the functionality that Connect has to offer. Then we'll come to audio settings. Your first option is going to be VoIP only, so that means headsets. It's a good option. Generally, again, on webinars, they're not as interactive, so you're not really using a device to speak. You're just sort of listening. Usually the hosts will globally mute everyone inside the room. And so for that point, I think that this first option is a nice selection. If you do, for whatever reason, want to introduce a telephony bridge, you'll do the second option, and you'll create an audio profile. We'll have another video. We already have a video out on this currently. Button placements might be slightly different in the old interface, but the fundamentals are exactly the same. So if you want to look up how to create an audio profile, how to add your own 1-800 toll-free number, or how to add one of our integrated audio providers that you would need to purchase, those videos are on the channel also. This third option, just pretend it's not here. It does you no good. It'll be a mute recording. It's just sort of a visual guide for if people need to call into a number, but again, it's not going to help you. You'll have a silent recording, so stick to the first or the second option. Again, first option, if we're doing microphones and headsets, VoIP. Second option, if we're doing telephony. Now, one more phase for the actual room creation, that's going to be presetting roles. So if you have a couple of your colleagues that are going to be joining you, you want to upgrade them as hosts or presenters, I can preset roles on this next phase. So if my colleague Aaron Wolf I want to add him to my room, and I'm going to set his permissions to host. Now he's going to come in automatically as a host. So you could set your guest speakers up ahead of time if you want to do this. In order for them to appear on that left-hand side list to choose from in the first place, they need to be created in your Connect system. They need to have profiles created for them. We also have a video on that, users and groups. So be sure to check that out. But I'm actually going to remove them so they don't get an annoying notification from me in their inbox. And then we'll go ahead and click finish. And now the actual virtual room is created. But again, part 2, which is a required step with seminars, is to actually schedule the session. So we created the room, and you can go in there and customize it, mess around, play around, add pods, add layouts, etc. However, if we want to make this official and actually schedule a session, we'll need to go ahead and click the schedule a session button. It's going to automatically choose the webinar room that we just created. If for whatever reason you want to choose another one, you can certainly do that from this drop-down menu. Now we'll actually name the actual program that we're going to host inside the room. So I'd probably call this, Adobe Connect Training 101. And then we'll choose the start time, and we'll choose the duration. And so, if you wanted to have this run for 12 hours, I'll set this to 12, and that'll go from 10:15 a.m. to 10:15 p.m. Again, make sure your time zone is correct. You don't want that to be wrong. And then you can click create. And now your session is scheduled. If you click on seminar sessions up at the top here, you'll see an overview of upcoming sessions that you have. You can even take a look and filter through the dates. To make things easier from a calendar standpoint, you can go to seminar calendar, and you can also see a nice little sort of graphic that'll show you and your licenses, and it'll show the other seminar licenses on the account as well. I believe with shared licenses, you can't really schedule seminars within 30 minutes of each other, so keep that in mind. I think the system likes to have 30 minutes of a buffer in between. I think that goes for named seminars also. However, with named seminars, since you're the only one using that license, there should be no confusion. And you guys can obviously, again, check out what you have coming up on the seminar session button and the seminar calendar. So again, to summarize what we just did, we're working in the seminar tab. We're using webinar licenses. There are webinar 100, there are webinar 500, webinar 1000 licenses. There's also shared licenses. These are not to be confused with meetings, right? You're going to be living in the seminar tab. You're going to create the seminar room, and then you're actually going to schedule the session ahead of time. All right, so one other thing to note is when you guys join a seminar room, if you don't have one scheduled, it's going to put you in this sort of this standby mode. So they're only going to have up to either 10 or 15 participants, if my memory serves me correct. We'll see here in just a second. There we go. So standby mode, you can see the notification up in the top right hand corner. Only up to 10 participants can join. So if you guys want to, you could just go ahead and click this new instant session button, and it's going to basically allot this room 60 minutes to have a program and have a scheduled session in it. And I think around the 30-minute marker, it's going to ask you, or 15 minutes, it's going to ask you if you want to extend it for another 60 minutes, and you can click yes or no. So again, this will only pop up if you don't actually schedule a session ahead of time. So if you want to, again, you can schedule it instantly inside here, or you guys can schedule it through the back end like we just did. If you don't want to deal with those annoying notifications up in the top right hand corner as you're going through your webinar, I would recommend simply just scheduling it ahead of time. So if you guys want to stay up to date with all the newest content that we will be releasing, again, we're sort of revamping the page to reflect on the new interface with 11.2. Hit that subscribe button. There's also a little bell notification. That way you guys can kind of stay up to date on all the newest content. We appreciate your time, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, guys.